Hi, welcome back to Library Says. My name is Jamie, and today we're doing the Women's History book tag. So I actually found this tag on book blogs. If anyone has done it on YouTube, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to link the original post down below if you want to go check it out. This tag consists of 10 prompts for book recommendations inspired by 10 important women throughout history. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Number 1 is inspired by Rosa Parks, and the prompt is a book about a female character who doesn't do what she's told. So for this, I actually chose a whole series, but I am going to include my favorite of the series on the screen, and that is the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner. This is the Queen of Atolia. So Irene is the Queen of Atolia. She's just called Atolia. And a famous part of her lore as queen is that when she was the heir apparent to her father's throne, but wasn't supposed to rule on her own, she was supposed to marry a man chosen for her to be king, and then she would rule as his queen. He was mysteriously poisoned and killed. So she has ruled all by herself up until the point of this series. I just love that. It just makes me laugh that she was just like, oh yeah, I'll marry him, and then he'll mysteriously die, and I will take the throne, like I planned to do to begin with. If you haven't read this series, I highly recommend it. Atolia is a fantastic character. The whole series is full of fantastic characters, and Megan Whalen Turner is a fantastic author, so definitely give this one a go. Number 2 is inspired by Ada Lovelace. The prompt is a book with an intelligent female character. I have chosen The Beekeepers Apprentice by Lori R. King. This is the first book of a series, and they are essentially Sherlock Holmes sequels. Many years after the Sherlock stories, he has sort of retired and is beekeeping mostly. And he meets a 15-year-old Miss Mary Russell, who is very intelligent and very eager to essentially apprentice with Sherlock Holmes, not in beekeeping, but in fact in mystery solving. Definitely jump into this series. I'm just gonna recommend series, I guess, left and right. But intelligent, yes. She's basically a Sherlock Holmes mini-me. Number 3 is inspired by Queen Elizabeth I, and it is a book about a female character in a position of power. I chose Mistress of Rome by Kate Quinn. So this is sort of an interesting one because this book is actually about a slave girl initially. Her name is Thea, and she was stolen away from her home in Judea and sold into slavery in Rome. From there, she transforms herself into a singer that is in vogue with the wealthy elites of Rome, and from there snags the attention of the Emperor of Rome and becomes his mistress, which, considering her origins, is quite the position of power for a woman in Rome. In fact, some would say she's the most powerful woman in Rome. This is an epic, beautifully well-written and well-researched historical fiction, again, series. I highly recommend starting the whole series. You'll follow Thea and her extended family over many years, as well as other female characters in Rome's empire around the same time period, so I would highly recommend checking out any of Kate Quinn's Roman stories. Number 4 is inspired by Virginia Woolf, and it is a book with beautiful writing. For this one, I have chosen The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I don't know that I can say anything that you probably haven't already heard about this novel, but it is beautiful. I read it last year for the first time, and it is so atmospheric and so visceral. You feel like you're just perpetually in autumn. You can feel the cool air, and you can see the changing colors of the leaves, and meanwhile, you know, there's a sort of doom and gloom murder mystery happening, but it is fantastic, and it made me want to be in college. Like, it just... it was so well written. Number 5 is inspired by Joan of Arc, and it is a book about a female warrior. I went in a little bit of a different direction for this one, and I chose The Vampire Academy, which again is a series. These books follow Rose, who attends a school for vampires and dompiers. Dompiers being half human, half vampires, who are trained as warriors to protect the Morier, which are the true vampires. Rose is a BA character. Like, she is just awesome. She's gonna kick butt. She's gonna save the day. She's so snarky and hilarious, and sometimes overly confident. This series also has a fantastic forbidden romance, teacher-student sort of thing going on. It has fantastic female friendships. These are great. And I know what you're thinking, like, really? A YA vampire series? Yes. Yes, I am recommending a YA vampire series for this women's history book tag. Challenge number 6 is inspired by Mae Jemison, and it is a book that takes place in space. For this one, I have gone for These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. You probably know Amy Kaufman more so from pairing up with Jay Kristoff to write the Illuminae trilogy, but before she did that, she paired up with Megan Spooner to write this trilogy. This is, again, a series. This is the first book, and it is my favorite of the trilogy. Each book follows a different set of male and female characters, and it all takes place in space. It's a very futuristic sci-fi world, and this first book essentially is is Titanic in space. A rich girl and a poor boy who get stranded together when their spaceship essentially sinks. She has to sort of figure out what she's really made of. Meanwhile, he has a bunch of assumptions about her that maybe aren't so correct after all. I loved this. It's beautiful. I love Titanic, so that was fun. I really like that these books were written by a pair of female authors. Number 7 is inspired by Rosalind Franklin, and it's an underappreciated book. So for this one, I've chosen My Name is Memory by Anne Brashares. This is one of those that I don't know a ton of people who have read. It doesn't have the greatest reviews on Goodreads or anything like that, so it could just be a personal favorite. But this book follows a male character who has been reincarnated hundreds, if not thousands of times from the beginning of humanity and remembers all of his lives. And in every life has fallen in love with a woman who dies tragically. Modern day, he meets this same woman. She does not remember being reincarnated over and over. She's just, you know, a teenager in high school when they meet and thinks he's sort of mysterious. I love the development of all of their different past lives and how it culminates. The problem with this book is that it ends basically on a cliffhanger, and it was published in 2010, 10 years ago, and doesn't have a sequel. It was supposed to, but I don't think it sold as well as anticipated, and so the sequel never happened. However, Anne Brashares has just announced that the sequel has been greenlighted and she has a complete draft that is in edits. She announced that on Twitter. I literally started to tear up when I read that on Twitter. This book just had such an impact on me when I read it the first time, 10 years ago. I read it when it first came out. And to know that there is a sequel coming, I am so happy. So if you're interested, you should read My Name is Memory now so you're ready for when the second book comes out. Number 8 is inspired by Marsha P. Johnson. It is a book that features an LGBTQ+ main character. I'm going to recommend Birthday by Meredith Russo. I just read this last month for the first time. It is the story of Morgan, who is a transgender teenager, and it sort of chronicles her relationship with her best friend, who she shares a birthday with. It takes place just on their birthday each year from 13 to 18 years old. And Morgan's changing awareness of her identity and her relationship with Eric, her best friend, and with her father, and it is beautiful and so well done. I read it in a single day. I couldn't put it down, and I recommend you check it out. Number 9 is inspired by Amelia Earhart, and it is an award-winning book that deserves the hype. So for this one, I went with The Giver by Lois Lowry. I know you've probably all read The Giver by Lois Lowry. I read it for the first time, I think, in 6th grade, and I probably have reread it more times than any other book. Like 15 or 20 times I've read this book. It's a very quick read. You'll power right through it. Depending on who you ask, it's either middle grade or it's YA. It is a dystopian book, the first dystopian novel I ever read, and sort of informed how I feel and how I perceive dystopia. It's about a boy named Jonas who lives in an idyllic society. When he turns 13 years old, he and all of his friends who are also turning 13 are assigned their roles within the community. And he is given an unusual role, a singular role, which is that of the receiver. He doesn't know what that means, but he has to work with the former receiver who calls himself the giver. Jonas has to receive memories of the world prior to their idyllic society. And that is dark and scary and sad, but it also is the flip side. It's amazing and emotional and beautiful. All things that have just been eliminated from their current society. I wasn't planning on going into such detail, but this is one of my favorite books of all time, and if you haven't read it, please do. It won the Newbery and deserved it. Number 10 is my choice of a historical woman who has made an impact. So this might be cheating. She's not historical, but I'm gonna go with Chanel Miller. She's actually a current day woman. She's alive right now. She's around my age, but she was the survivor of sexual assault and initially remained anonymous. Brock Turner was the assaulter, and of course I'm sure you've heard his name, but you might not have heard hers because, like I said, she was initially anonymous, but she wrote her impact statement, and if you haven't read it, do. I read it at work and was crying, like full-on crying reading it, sitting at my desk at work. It is so powerful and so beautiful and so tragic and so heartbreaking, and she is so inspiring, having survived what she did and having the courage to speak out the way she has and to call him out. She has in fact written her memoir now, which is called Know My Name. I haven't read it yet. I have every intention of doing so you and I can read it together, but the book I actually chose for this prompt is Easy by Tamara Weber. This is a new adult, essentially romance, and on the cover, like you can see the cover, it's so cheesy and terrible, and it doesn't look like anything meaningful, but it is. So the main character in this is Jacqueline, and she is the victim of attempted assault, and she refuses to keep her mouth shut about it, and in fact finds other survivors and rallies them and has such strength and such courage when it would be easier to shrink and hide and keep things to herself. Meanwhile, she is developing a relationship with a male main character who has trauma in his background as well, and they grow together. It's a powerful one. So if you have any interest in reading a new adult novel that has more meat to it than you would think, I would pick up Easy. So that's it. That is the Women's History book tag. Maybe you've been inspired to pick up a book by one of these authors or about one of these characters. Rather than tagging anyone specifically, I'm just going to say, if you've watched this and you have interest, consider yourself tagged. As always, I have my Goodreads and my Twitter linked down below. I'll have the link to the original tag. I will have the link to Chanel Miller's impact statement in the description box. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.